I overheard my daughter's phone call. No, Mia, my dad still doesn't know anything. Even my mom's boyfriend sometimes picks me up from school. My heart stopped when she added, yes, they're planning to move to California once my dad pays off my college tuition. That evening, I canceled the tuition payments, transferred the assets, and left the divorce papers. Cheaters will get what's coming to them. The morning sun cast long shadows across Derek Newton's office as he reviewed the final calculations for the Harrison Bridge project. At 45, his salt and pepper hair and sharp features gave him an air of authority that matched his reputation. The wall behind his desk displayed numerous awards and certificates, testaments to his ability to turn failing infrastructure projects into resounding successes. Mr. Newton's assistant, Sarah, poked her head through the door. The board meeting starts in 5 minutes. Derek gathered his presentation materials with practiced efficiency. Thank you, Sarah. Has finance sent the updated projections? They just came in. I've added them to your slides, Sarah replied, handing him a sleek tablet. And congratulations in advance. Word is the promotion's already decided. He offered a measured smile. Let's not count our chickens just yet. The boardroom fell silent as Derek presented his findings. The Harrison Bridge project had been bleeding money for months before he took over, but now his innovative redesign would save the city millions while improving structural integrity. Remarkable work, Derek, Chairman Phillips announced after the presentation. The board has unanimously decided to promote you to Senior Project Director, effective immediately. Handshakes and congratulations followed, but Derek's mind was already on his next challenge. Success wasn't a destination, it was a continuous journey of improvement. Back in his office, he called Amanda, his wife of 22 years. Derek, how did it go? Amanda's voice carried its usual enthusiasm. Got the promotion. Thinking of celebrating tonight at La Maison. Oh honey, I'm so sorry. I have a client meeting that ran late. Rain check? Derek noted the background noise, music and chatter that didn't sound like her usual design studio. No problem. Everything okay there? Sounds busy. Just at a cafe, going over some designs. Salvador's helping me with a new meditation room concept. You know how these creative meetings go. Salvador Knox, the yoga instructor Amanda had started seeing 6 months ago for her stress management. Derek had met him once, noticed the 2 white teeth and the way his eyes lingered on Amanda's figure. Of course. Don't work too late. After hanging up, Derek pulled up their joint account statement, another withdrawal, $5,000 marked as home renovation research. Curious choice of words for what should be a simple design consultation. The drive home took longer than usual, a throbbing migraine building behind his eyes. The house was quiet when he arrived, its modern architecture a testament to Amanda's design aesthetic. Family photos lined the hallway, their wedding day, Emma's high school graduation, family vacations that now felt like scenes from another life. He headed to his home office, the medication for his migraine stored in the desk drawer. The house's open floor plan carried voices clearly, specifically his daughter Emma's voice from her bedroom upstairs. No, Mia, my dad still has no clue. Mom's boyfriend even picks me up from school sometimes when he's in town. Derek's hand froze on the drawer handle. Yeah, they're planning to move to California once dad pays off my college. Mom says Salvador's got connections there. I know, right? She says dad's too boring, too predictable. At least Salvador takes her dancing. The medicine forgotten, Derek sat in the darkness of his office, his engineering mind already processing this new data. The variables aligned with disturbing clarity, Amanda's increased absences, the mysterious withdrawals, Emma's sudden interest in California medical schools, despite Stanford's prestigious program being right there in Palo Alto. The next morning, Derek maintained his routine with practiced precision. Breakfast with Amanda, who chatted about her latest design project while checking her phone under the table. He noticed the small smile that played on her lips as she read her messages, the way she angled the screen away from him. Greg called yesterday, Amanda mentioned casually. The startup's doing well. That investment really helped them take off. Derek stirred his coffee. Which investment was that? Oh, you know, from those early investors, Amanda waved dismissively. He's hosting another business meeting today. Such a responsible brother you have. Greg's business meeting's another piece of the puzzle. His brother had always been the family charmer, the one who could talk his way out of anything. Now, it seemed he was talking his way into something far more insidious. At work, Derek accessed the company's contracted investigation firm's database. Raoul Levy's profile stood out, former military intelligence, specialized in corporate espionage, known for discretion. Derek sent a carefully worded email requesting a meeting. That afternoon, in a coffee shop far from his usual haunts, Derek sat across from Levy, a compact man with watchful eyes. Tell me about Salvador Knox, Derek said, sliding an envelope containing his initial payment. Levy's investigation revealed the first layer of deception within days. Salvador Knox had never completed his yoga instructor certification. His real estate license had been revoked in 3 states for ethical violations. His pattern was consistent: identify wealthy women, preferably married, establish trust through wellness coaching, then slowly work his way into their lives and their bank accounts. Your brother's startup, Levy reported, received a significant investment 6 months ago, $300,000 routed through a shell company called KNX Enterprises. Derek's jaw tightened. The amount matched several large withdrawals from his and Amanda's joint account, withdrawals Amanda had insisted were for Emma's college fund. The neighborhood played its part in the deception. Derek watched through his home office window as Linda Carlson picked up Amanda for their book club, the same book club that met at different houses each week, yet never seemed to actually discuss books. The Vilders next door would wave cheerfully whenever Amanda left for her yoga sessions, their teenage son oddly well informed about Derek's work schedule. One evening, Derek followed the thread to its source. He parked outside Greg's startup offices long after business hours. Amanda's car was there, parked next to a sleek sports car he recognized as Salvador's. Through the glass front of the building, he could see them in Greg's office, Amanda laughing at something Salvador said, his hand resting possessively on her waist. Greg sat at his desk, playing with his phone, the perfect accomplice providing the perfect cover. Emma's role became clearer too. Derek reviewed her recent credit card statements, coffee shops near Salvador's apartment, Uber rides that coincided with Amanda's appointments. His daughter had become their unwitting accomplice, or perhaps not so unwitting. The betrayal crystallized one morning as Derek reviewed the documents Levy had gathered. Amanda's father, Judge Martin Reynolds, retired, had been advising her on divorce proceedings for months. Notes from their meetings detailed strategies to maximize her claims on Derek's assets, using his long work hours and emotional unavailability as leverage. Derek sat in his office, surrounded by the evidence of his family's betrayal, and began to plan. The engineer in him approached it like any other project: identify the problems, analyze the variables, design the solution. The mounting pressure behind his eyes reminded him of the migraines that had plagued him lately, but he pushed through it. Pain was temporary, revenge, when properly executed, was permanent. He started with Emma's college fund. A quick review confirmed his suspicions: Amanda had been systematically draining it, moving money through a series of accounts. The final semester's payment was due soon, after which they probably planned to empty what remained. The neighborhood's involvement ran deeper than he'd initially suspected. The Carlsons had received a loan from Amanda, $40,000 from Derek's money. The Vilders had a similar arrangement. Each family had their own secrets, their own reasons for helping maintain the facade. Derek worked late into the night, documenting everything, every transaction, every meeting, every lie. The engineer in him appreciated the elegance of their deception, how each piece supported the others, how the structure of their betrayal had been carefully built over months. Now you can watch the second part by pressing share and more. Update 2. The others thought the structure of their betrayal had been carefully built over months, perhaps years. But as an engineer, I knew better than anyone that every structure has its weak points, every system could be dismantled. It was simply a matter of identifying the critical supports and removing them in the correct order. The office chair creaked as I leaned back, eyes moving from document to document, Amanda's carefully crafted persona as the supportive wife, Salvador's image as a spiritual wellness guide, Emma's role as their unwitting accomplice, and Greg's startup as their meeting ground and money laundering operation. All the pieces were in place. Now it was time to begin the real work. Through my office window, I watched the sunrise over the city. The Harrison Bridge project had taught me an important lesson: sometimes, to save a structure, you had to let parts of it fall. The weak points, the compromised sections, all had to go before you could rebuild something stronger. I picked up my phone and dialed Catherine Parsons, the city's most ruthless divorce attorney. Miss Parsons, Derek Newton. I need your help with a rather complex dismantling project. The pieces were set, the calculations made. Now it was time to show my family the true price of betrayal. The scene unfolded like a well-rehearsed play at the Carlsons' dinner party that weekend. Amanda wore her favorite blue dress, the one Salvador had complimented during their first private yoga session. She worked the room with practiced charm, occasionally touching my arm for show, all while exchanging knowing glances with our host, Linda Carlson. Derek, the Harrison Bridge project is fascinating, Tom Wilder said, swirling his whiskey. Must be keeping you busy at all hours. Very busy, Amanda interjected with a laugh that didn't quite reach her eyes. Some weeks I hardly see him at all. Across the room, Salvador, standing in designer jeans and a tight-fitting Henley, smirked at this comment. The yoga instructor was playing his role perfectly, the spiritual guide offering private sessions to select clients while building his network among the neighborhood's wealthy wives. Dad, can I take the car tomorrow? Emma appeared at my elbow, her expression carefully neutral. I have a study group meeting. Of course, Princess. My voice betrayed nothing of what I knew about these study groups, how they coincided perfectly with Amanda and Salvador's meetings, how my daughter served as their lookout and alibi. Later that night, I sat in my home office, reviewing the latest reports from Rule Levy. The investigator had been thorough, documenting every meeting, every transaction, every little betrayal. The photo showed a clear pattern: Amanda arriving at Greg's startup offices, Salvador following shortly after, Emma's car parked nearby, keeping watch while sending texts about study sessions and client meetings. The financial trail was equally damning. Amanda had diverted over $500,000 from our joint accounts, routing it through various shells and fronts. Some went to Salvador's California property purchases, some to Greg's startup, and some to buy the silence and cooperation of our neighbors. My phone buzzed, a text from Catherine Parsons: documents ready. Moving forward on your signal. I looked at the family photo on my desk: Amanda, Emma, and me at Emma's high school graduation. All smiles, all perfect, all fake. The glass in the frame reflected my own image, a successful man who had dedicated his life to building things, only to discover his family had been systematically dismantling everything he'd created. The migraine was back, pulsing behind my eyes, but I welcomed the pain. It helped me focus, helped me remember why I needed to stay sharp. In engineering, precision was everything. One miscalculation, one moment of emotional weakness, and the entire project could collapse. Through the house's excellent acoustics, another of Amanda's design choices, I could hear her on the phone in our bedroom, her voice low but clear. "No, Salvador, he doesn't suspect a thing. Yes, once Emma's last tuition payment clears. I know, baby. I can't wait to start our new life. He's so wrapped up in his precious bridges, he wouldn't notice if I danced naked in his office." I allowed myself a small smile. In engineering, every stress test revealed new weaknesses, every failure pointed the way to a stronger design. My family had taught me the ultimate lesson in structural integrity: sometimes the most devastating forces came from within. I turned back to my computer and began to type. The dismantling would begin soon, and like every project I'd ever managed, this one would be executed with absolute precision. After all, I hadn't earned my reputation by leaving jobs half finished. The first light of dawn was breaking over the horizon as I finished my preparations. In a few hours, Amanda would wake up and go about her day, confident in the perfection of her plan. Emma would head to her study group, believing her role as lookout was still a secret. Greg would open his startup's offices, unaware that his money laundering operation was about to implode. And I would do what I did best: systematically, methodically, ruthlessly solve the problem in front of me. Because that's what engineers did. They identified structural weaknesses and then they eliminated them. The sun rose fully over the city, its light catching the glass and steel of the buildings I had helped design and save. It was going to be a perfect day for demolition. Rule Levy sat across from me in a private meeting room at the Harrison Bridge project site, spreading photographs and financial documents across the table. The private investigator's reputation for discretion had made him the perfect choice for this delicate operation. "Let's start with the money trail," Levy said, pulling out a complex flowchart. "Your wife's been systematic. Every withdrawal marked as home renovation, research, or college expenses has been rerouted through a series of shell companies." I studied the diagram. "Show me Salvador's involvement." KNX established the first shell company 2 weeks after meeting your wife. Levy placed 3 more files on the table. "He's done this before: Arizona, Nevada, and Oregon. Different names, same pattern. He positions himself as a spiritual guide and then gradually takes control of their finances. The other victims, 3 wealthy women, all married." Levy's expression hardened slightly. "2 lost everything in divorce, the third," he paused, "committed suicide when she discovered the extent of his manipulation. Knox walked away clean each time." My fingers traced the financial flow on the diagram. "The California property? Beachfront estate in Malibu, purchased through Knox Enterprises last month." Levy pulled up satellite images on his tablet. $6 million property. "The down payment came directly from your joint account, laundered through your brother's startup." "Speaking of my brother, Greg's startup is the perfect front." Levy produced more documents. "They're creating fake consulting contracts. Your wife transfers money to shell companies, which then invest in the startup. The startup pays Knox Enterprises for strategic planning, which funds the California property and their other expenses." I nodded, my engineer's mind cataloging each piece of evidence. "And the neighborhood involvement?" "The Carlsons received $40,000, marked as a personal loan. The Vilders, $35,000. Levy showed bank statements. "Both couples have their own secrets. Linda Carlson's having an affair with her tennis instructor, Tom Wilder has gambling debts. Your wife and Knox leveraged this information to build their network of allies." "And Emma?" Levy hesitated before pulling out another file. "Your daughter's role is more significant than we initially thought. She's not just providing alibis or acting as lookout. She's been helping KNX move money, delivering documents between accounts. She thinks she's just running errands for her mother, but she's actually been participating in money laundering." Now you can watch the second part by pressing share and more. Update 3. She thinks she's just running errands for her mother, but she's actually been participating in money laundering. Derek's expression remained neutral, but his fingers tightened on the edge of the table. "Document everything, every transaction, every meeting, every phone call." After Levy left, Derek made another call. Catherine Parsons, the city's most ruthless divorce attorney, agreed to meet him immediately. In Parsons' corner office overlooking the city courthouse, Derek watched her review Levy's findings. "Your wife's been clever," Parsons said, adjusting her reading glasses. "Having her father advise her was particularly shrewd. Judge Reynolds knows every loophole in family court." "Tell me about his involvement." "He's been coaching her on asset division strategies for months," Parsons said, pulling out court records. "Weekly meetings disguised as family dinners. He's advising her on how to maximize her claims, using your work schedule and supposed emotional unavailability as leverage." "Can he influence the proceedings?" "He's still well connected, already making calls to former colleagues, trying to ensure the case gets assigned to a friendly judge." Parsons smiled thinly. "But his involvement in hiding assets will be his undoing. No judge will touch this case once that comes out." Derek leaned forward. "I want to protect Emma's education. Whatever happens, she needs to finish medical school. We'll set up an irrevocable trust," Parsons assured him. "They won't be able to touch it." Parsons made notes, then paused. "But, Derek, you understand what this means? Your daughter's involvement in their scheme will become part of the official record." "She made her choice," Derek replied, his voice steely. "Actions have consequences. Over the next 2 weeks, Derek orchestrated his counter-strategy with military precision. Each evening after Amanda left for her yoga sessions, he worked systematically through their financial history, documenting every suspicious transaction. The surveillance footage Levy provided painted a damning picture. Amanda and Salvador meeting at Greg's startup offices, their behavior growing more brazen each time. Emma making bank runs, delivering envelopes between accounts, the neighborhood couples providing alibis while accepting payments for their silence. Your brother's startup is the weak link, Levy reported during their next meeting. Greg's getting sloppy with the paperwork. Look at these invoices. Derek reviewed the documents, fake consulting contracts, non-existent clients, inflated fees, all designed to launder his stolen money through the business. Late one night, as Derek worked in his home office, he overheard Amanda on the phone. Everything's perfect, she was saying. Salvador found the most amazing house in Malibu. Once Derek makes that last tuition payment, she laughed. No, he suspects nothing. Too busy with his precious bridges to notice anything. That's what makes it so perfect, he trusts me completely with the finances. The next day, Derek met with his bank's trust department. The officer, Janet Shin, reviewed his proposal carefully. An irrevocable trust for your daughter's education? She asked. Derek nodded. Once established, neither you nor your wife will have access to these funds. Exactly. Derek signed the documents. The only requirement is that Emma's GPA stays above 3.8. The money can only be used for tuition and educational expenses. And your other assets? Move them to the secure accounts we discussed, but leave the joint accounts active. I want to see who tries to access them. That evening, Derek met with Judge Reynolds himself, using a charity gala as cover. The older man's confidence was evident in his every gesture. Derek. Amanda tells me you're working too hard, as usual, Reynolds said, clapping him on the shoulder. You should take more time for family. Actually, I've been thinking about estate planning, Derek replied smoothly. Given your experience in family court, I'd value your opinion on asset protection strategies. Reynolds' eyes lit up with barely concealed interest. Always happy to advise family. Why don't you come by my office next week? Perfect. I'll bring the financial records Amanda's been keeping. The slight widening of Reynolds' eyes confirmed Derek's suspicions. The judge quickly recovered, but the damage was done. The trigger came sooner than expected. Derek's phone buzzed during a project meeting, an alert from his bank. Someone was attempting a large transfer from the joint accounts. He excused himself and called Levy. They're moving now. Knox just entered the bank on 5th Street, Levy confirmed. Your wife's waiting in the car. Should I follow? No need. Let's see how this plays out. Within an hour, his phone exploded with messages. Amanda, the bank system is down. Did you change something? Greg, hey, bro, having some issues with those investment transfers we discussed. Salvador's number, which he'd never seen before, we need to talk about Amanda's accounts. Derek let them stew for 3 hours before responding to Amanda. In meetings. Bank called about suspicious activity, had to freeze everything temporarily. We'll check later. Her response came instantly. What? We need access now. Emma's tuition is due. He didn't reply. Instead, he called Emma's university directly, speaking with the bursar's office. This is Derek Newton. I understand there's been some confusion about my daughter's tuition payments. Oh yes, Mr. Newton. We received an attempt to withdraw all funds from her education account today, but it was blocked by trust restrictions. Excellent. Please ensure all future transactions require my direct authorization. That evening, Derek arrived home to find Emma waiting in his office, her face flushed with anger. Mom told me everything, she said, how you've been embezzling from your company, how you're trying to ruin her and Salvador's lives because you're jealous of their relationship. Derek sat down calmly, opened his laptop, and turned it toward her. Your mother and Salvador attempted to empty your college fund today. They've been planning this for months. The California house they're planning to move to? Purchased with money stolen from your education account. Emma's face paled as she looked at the documentation, bank statements, transfer records, surveillance photos. The evidence was overwhelming. But the study sessions, the errands, were cover for their meetings and money laundering, Derek said, his voice steady. Those documents you've been delivering? Financial instruments for moving stolen money. Your mother and Salvador plan to leave you with massive student debt while they enjoyed your education fund in Malibu. Emma sank into a chair, her hands shaking as she scrolled through the evidence.
Dad, I didn't know, save it, Derek stood.
Your trust fund is secure now. Maintain a 3.8 GPA, and your education is guaranteed. That's more than they plan to leave you with. I didn't know. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. You knew enough. Derek moved toward the door. You chose your side, Emma. Now you'll live with those consequences. Later that night, Amanda stormed into his office, Salvador in tow. Her carefully maintained poise had cracked, revealing the desperation beneath. What have you done? She demanded. Those accounts were joint property. Were they? Derek looked up calmly. Like the joint property you've been funneling to your boyfriend's shell companies? Salvador stepped forward, his yoga instructor's serenity replaced by barely controlled anger. Listen, man, you don't want to do this. Think about your reputation. My reputation? Derek's laugh was cold. That's interesting coming from a con man who's done this to 3 other women. Tell me, Salvador, Does Amanda know about Helen Richards, the woman who killed herself after you destroyed her life? Amanda's head whipped toward Salvador, the first crack in their united front. He's lying, Salvador said quickly. Baby, he's just trying to turn you against me. The documentation is with my lawyers, Derek continued calmly, along with evidence of every transaction, every meeting, every conspiracy. Now you can watch the second part by pressing share and more.